You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to learn more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at beardedtheologians.com, where we have past podcasts, blogs, and a couple items for sale. So check us out, beardedtheologians.com. Thank you for listening, and enjoy this week's show. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold. And we have a very special guest with us today, one that I'm just really excited about. Try not to fanboy too much over our guest today, but we have Leanor Ortega Till with us, the sax player of Five Iron Frenzy. Leanor, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm here in snowy Denver. If you can believe it snowed a couple days ago. It's a little early for that, but here we are.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm just up the road from you in Cheyenne. So it's great. Love this time of year. Well, why don't you tell us and our listeners a little bit who you are, kind of where you're from, and what you do.
Okay, well, actually, I grew up kind of by Cheyenne. I grew up in a tiny town called Pierce, Colorado, but I never quite fit in there. I was always on the punk rock spectrum, if you want to call it that. So in the 90s, I got really into punk rock, and most of the kids in my high school were into line dancing or rap. I don't know. Are you familiar with line dancing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I found that in high school, it was more fun to try to run as fast as you could through the lines during a school dance. That. It's kind of dangerous. But anyway, so I didn't grow up with Christian music at all, like zero. So I started going to church camp around 12, 13. And at church camp, I met this guy named Micah. And he was a total metalhead. He was like 12 and wore metal shirts. And I was like, dude, your last name's Ortega and my last name's Ortega. And it was awkward for the first couple of days because we just kind of stared at each other weird. And then we started talking, which is what you should do when you find out someone has your last name. And it turns out our grandpas are brothers. So we're like second cousins. Is that right? I don't know. Is that how you do it?
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, so he was in a heavy metal band later when we were in high school called Exhumator. And I was, always a fan of Micah's, whatever he did. So I started going to this Christian metal band called Exhumator. And it meant to exhume, meant like taking, like Jesus takes you out of the grave kind of idea. And these guys were weird. All of them had really long hair. The lead singer looked like Sebastian Bach, but his name was Reese Roper. And I went to several punk metal shows, and we would pray. We were very serious. We'd pray before the show, and I had a blue mohawk, and they had long hair. And one day they were like, we kind of want to start this side project that's going to be a ska band, and you play saxophone, right? And I was like, yeah, but I don't really know what ska is, and I definitely don't think that there's Christian music like that. And they're like, you would be surprised. So that's kind of the story. I joined Five Iron Frenzy right out of high school. Actually, while I was in high school, 1995, started driving up to Denver for band practice. And that was the beginning of the rest of my life, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Matt and I both have an affinity for woodwinds. We went through high school playing clarinet and bass clarinet and saxophones and things. And so
cool.
I can't speak for Matt, but it was always my dream that somebody would do the same thing. Hey, you play saxophone? Right. Come do this thing with us. Yes. For a time such as this.
I lived that dream until probably my junior year in college. Mm-hmm. And nobody was asking, and I realized there's probably a reason why nobody's asking me to be in a ska band, and it's probably time for me to put it up. So yeah,
we always joke and say that the definition of an optimist is a trombone player with a pager. Similar story for Dennis Culp. So he's in our band also, but his story was that he went to a Presbyterian church, and we started going to this Presbyterian church just because it was walking distance, and we could sneak in from the band house and get chocolate milk and donuts on the way, sit in the balcony, and nobody bothered us, right? And they also didn't ask us to take, for the guys with long hair, we used to get asked, if you're going to come to church, put your hair back, take your piercings out, just don't cause a scene. But the Presbyterian church was chill. And so Dennis went to that church, and he came to a show, and yeah, he basically just watched, and he was like, yeah, I'd like to be in this band too. And we're like, this guy's like 25, we're 18, he has a real job and a real degree and a briefcase, and it's kind of a yuppie. Is he going to fit in? And I'm glad he did, because he actually knows how to read music, and most of us don't. So it's been good to have someone who knows what keys things are supposed to be in.
Right. Yeah, it's, I run into that a lot with even myself now of moving on from classical band trading into this, whatever else I do musically, of like, oh, I don't remember what that is. And then run across people of like, hey, here's how you actually play me. Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. That's helpful.
It's pretty funny because people are always like, do you write out your songs? I'd love to get some sheet music. And we just really laugh. We're like, what? No, you can't.
Exactly.
We scribbled it on a napkin, and I don't know how to, yeah.
Well, and I love that. That's something fascinating about the writing process, both musically and lyrically, of just, here's an idea, let's run with it. And the tension between that formality and the creativity that has. So tell us, you guys have been around for what seems like forever, right?
Well, did you know the story? So yeah, we started in 95 and we rocked out till 2003. And so in that time, there was a lot of things we did. We lived in one really nasty, disgusting band house. And then when Dennis joined the band, we started slowly making the exodus into his nicer band house. Took over his house. We did everything from a bunch of Christian festivals in the summer, Cornerstone, Alive Fest, Ichthus, Creation, all the big festivals. And then we would do Warped Tour. We got to go to Europe, South Africa, do a bunch of different benevolence shows, and Ska Against Racism, which was in 98, one of the bigger secular tours with Mike Park put that on with Less Than Jake, the Toasters, a lot of different, secular bands. So that's what we did for several years. And then on good terms in 2003, we broke up.
Mm-hmm.
So then we took a break for, I don't know, maybe it was 7 years, maybe it was 9 years, I don't remember. But in that time, we all got married, and most of us had kids and started careers. And then we got back together in 2011. So that's why it feels like forever,
right.
Even though there was a pretty significant break.
Right. And I found you guys in probably about 99. Kind of that same way, didn't fit in my little Texas town, and got into the punk rock scene and found, oh, hey, there's really, this movement of ska. And, unfortunately, it seems like maybe it was on the downhill time frame, ska was, but kept it alive, and my parachute pants and Hawaiian shirt.
Did you go to shows in the Woodlands, or what town were you in?
I was in the Panhandle of Texas, south of Amarillo. Oh. Yeah, so okay. we saw you guys play in Amarillo once. We saw you in Dallas at the Door.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's very punk rock.
Oh yeah.
So you're like the last Five Iron Frenzy show in Oklahoma City in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. That has been by far one of the coolest concerts I've ever been to, even still to this day.
Yeah, was Reliant K on that bill?
I think so. I think so. And I think I went because I was with the youth.
Was it like an old church, like a big old church?
Yeah. So that was like what happened was my friend was the youth director, and she said, "Hey, come with us to this concert. I'm paying for you. Just show up.
Nice.
I needed a male sponsor. Just be there to be a male sponsor."
Yeah, male sponsor.
And I was like, "Sure." Like, who's playing? And she's like, Fire and Frenzy. I was like, "Oh, I love them." She's like, she didn't realize, like, I was kind of like Zach. I actually knew more about ska music, especially Christian ska music, before I was a Christian. Like, it's kind of was like the bridge that kind of brought me into the church, that like there was this whole subset of people that were like really cool. Like, I really like them.
Yeah.
And so like the show was definitely by far, it's like still this day, one of my favorite shows I've ever, like I think it's number one, actually, in all honesty, out of all the shows I've been to. It was so that evening, like when everything was done, it was just like several people there. Like, it was church. Like still,
right.
Like, I've not had another experience anywhere close to that experience, and I've still been a fan.
Yeah. I remember that venue because it was one of those churches where sometimes you get to these churches and, maybe a youth pastor lets you in and has the keys, but there's nobody is paying attention. And so churches have fascinating places to hide. So we played hide and seek with Reliant K. And so you can hide in baptismals, you can find choir robes, you can find the hidden gems of churches. It's just so bizarre. But yeah, I just remember that really well because it was a very inner city area. Mm-hmm. And the crowd was very diverse. And yeah, it just felt like a really good place. And most of the time for churches, sometimes it feels uncomfortable because you're like, maybe it's too clean and pristine and you don't feel comfortable having a rowdy time. But this church, you felt like you were given permission to really be yourself. And so it was a good, comfortable vibe.
Yeah, and that's something that I always appreciated with your music was that rowdy, be comfortable with who you are vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Let's push back against having to pull your hair back and take out the piercings and hide your tattoos and things like that. But this is who we are and who we're called to be, and let's push up against that normal,
Right.
and see what happens. See where God's at work. See all of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
See that we're all just simply people. And I appreciated that because again, I was in an area that you pushed up against that, and it just
oh my
wasn't
gosh,
good.
I'll never forget. So Reese, when he started the band Roper, that was after Five Iron Frenzy, and my husband was in that band actually. So I toured with them, and it was kind of hard to sell T-shirts after being in Five Iron. But I was a supportive wife, and so here's Reese, and he's like, I think was that guy's name John Kerry that was running for president.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Reese was wearing a pink shirt in Texas at the show, John Kerry shirt. And we're like, dude, you're gonna get in big trouble. We had a phrase, this is bad, but always on the way it'd be like, let's mess with Texas. Here we go.
Perfect.
We're ready. Let's bring it. So it's kind of funny, we also have another phrase called that won't go over good in the Midwest. And that's a phrase. That's a phrase lyrically that would come out from our manager, or not our manager. He was the president of 5 Minute Walk. He was the owner of it, Frank Tate. And he's a sweet, sweet man. But, he wanted us to be ourselves, and he didn't want to push us, and he didn't want to tell us no. But he would say, I don't know how that's going to go over in the Midwest. And he was particularly concerned about the album artwork on our newest album ever. Do you remember? It had like an apocalyptic man with this burning, seared trumpet on his forehead, and Frank said, why do you have these little foxes or wolves that look like lawyers in the background? I don't understand. corporate USA what is happening? What is this man wearing? Like some kind of S&M gear. I don't understand.
Oh, I love that. Because I
I
often find myself
think it's weird.
Yeah. I often find because we ask ourselves those questions, where will this play, right? Will this play to my congregation? Will it play to my family?
Dude, I have to ask you, have you guys heard the new songs we put out?
Yeah,
we put out one for the Kickstarter, and then we put out one through the new Ska Against Racism compilation. Have you heard them both?
I've not heard the Ska Against Racism one.
So that one, the Ska Against Racism one, came up as I was looking at things today, and that one keyed up in for me, and so I got to listen to that a little bit today.
What do you think, Matt?
I'm excited. It actually brought back some other things too. Like I was listening, and I can't remember what it was, but it was one of your older albums. Like, wow, that preaches for today still too. Mm-hmm. Like it just stuck with. It was like, what's really, and that's what's really good about some music that you listen to. Maybe it's stuff that you were so used to growing up, and you hear it, it's like, wow, that still speaks today. Like, and it touches you, and it hits home.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really thrilled about what y'all are trying to do. And I'm interested to see what the response will be, because the whole idea, mess with Texas, that's definitely going to be fun to see how it plays there. And then in the Midwest, that's going to be I'll be intrigued to see what the response will be.
Yeah, I think that releasing So We Sing as our Kickstarter was really fun. I think that song is really fun. I think it's very positive. It's an homage to Peter Pan and Therese kind of looking at the theme again of kind of like every new day, like when we're adults, we don't want to fly anymore. We forget how to fly, and what a sad story. What a sad story that we're supposed to be modeling for our own children how to live this life of faith and positivity. And, God's given us, the whole concept in Corinthians that whatever God wants for us, we're going to do, what no mind can even fathom. But we get bogged down in the reality, right? Mm-hmm. And we want to call it the man, but it's not really the man, because there's a man in each of us, pushing us down, right? And so I think it's fascinating to be in this band too, because there is a dichotomy of grow up, put on your big girl panties or your big boy panties and make it work. And then there's also the part that's like, nah, dude, like put that in the shelf and come to a 5-iron show just for a night. Like, come
Mhm.
rock out. A lot of the times we're playing with MXPX or Squad 5 or some secular old ska bands. Have a couple beers, have a good time, forget that you have all that responsibility. And I think that So We Sing really speaks to that release that we need.
Absolutely. And I know Matt and I find that being pastors, we often have to do that in some cases, right? There's just the time and the place that we've got to put your big boy pants on and go do the thing we have to do, right?
Yeah.
But we long for those days that we can just go sit and have a beer and be real with people.
Right.
And let them be real with us. It's that constant, oh, Pastor, I'm sorry I didn't come to church. I don't care. Go be where you need to be. You owe me nothing. You owe me no apologies. Just go be you and go be in that place.
It was really hard for us. It was really hard for me to have an alcoholic beverage in front of fans. Even after I had had 2 kids and had been married for 10 years and, not been in 5-iron, the first round of 5-iron, we just didn't do that. We didn't drink. We didn't watch R-rated movies, which I still can't handle. But we were in some ways, we were legalistic with ourselves because we were coming out of, high school rowdiness. And then you had gotten saved, and then you wanted to represent Jesus in this way and with these rules for ourselves. And so for me personally, even though I, loved margarita, it took a long time to be like, go up to the bar kind of awkwardly, and some beefy dude, which are all the 5-iron fans, is like, oh my gosh, Jeff, can I buy you a shot? And I'm like, yeah, you would love to. Let's do that. Let's have a shot. Like, why not? Why not? But it took a while.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I can remember the first time I sat in public at like a Chili's or something with my wife and child, and didn't look around to see if there were church members in the room, right? Just, I'm going to be me and I'm going to have this beer, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and that's how I've been with I'm in a community where I have a liquor store, and I'll walk into the liquor store and I'll see church members like, hey, how's it going? Like, I'm real overtly like, hey, how's it going? Like, don't be awkward because your pastor's walking in the liquor store. Just roll with it. It's okay.
Right. We had the 5-iron Frenzy listening party at a brewery, actually. And it was very awesome. Nobody was getting out of hand. Colorado, we love breweries. I didn't even know I liked beer. I didn't know. Dude, chai stouts, milk stouts, pale ales. I like beer. I can say it. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
I'm a very high maintenance Latina when it comes to drinking. So if I'm going to have a Corona, I want salt around the edge and a lime, and it has to be
drop
really
a lime
cold.
in it. I did my seminary work in Denver, and we did probably more drinking at breweries than we did seminary work. So it's good stuff.
Were you at Denver Seminary?
I was at ILIF.
Oh yeah, okay.
There at DU. Yeah, it's a good time. So that's a ton of fun, and getting to know, one, for me, coming in from having this history, I guess, with you guys on the outside. You don't know me, but I know you, right? Through your music.
I guess you know me.
Right, exactly. And like Matt said, of the shows and the lyrics and the music just really spoke to us growing up, and still do very clearly, and to a lot of people as y'all launched this new album that just insane, right? There's something. Oh, I lost my train of thought. I was going somewhere with that. There's something about it all that brings us close together and shows that we can be who we are. We can be human, and you all doing that through music is truly life-giving to a lot of people. And I hope y'all don't underestimate that as a band.
If I overthink it, though, that's bad. I don't.
Of course, right?
So when I was young, like I said, I grew up in the country, and I don't know if it's something God gives you or if it's just a personality type, or because I grew up in the country, I was creative because there wasn't much to do. You couldn't go to the mall. You couldn't go to movies or anything like that. Like, you were in the fields, you were in the sticks. So you talk to imaginary friends, right? And just came up with your own creativity. But I always wanted more. And have you ever seen that movie Moana?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, there's got to be something beyond the sea. I really identify with that. I was like, there's got to be, like, I come from a Mexican-American background, and a lot of people in my family, and I'm not trying to talk badly about anybody, but nobody would go to college or graduate high school. Like I'm the second one ever and the first one ever to go to college other than my mom. Like the opportunities and the fact that I can say, I've gotten to go to South Africa and Europe several times and New Zealand a couple times, and just the opportunities and things that I've done with my life is nothing short than a miracle to me. Mm-hmm. And so but then there's this other like hard part of being in a band where it's like, if you put yourself on this pedestal, you start to believe that you should be there. Sure. And you kind of get to be like a jerk. So if I think too much like, oh, we're pretty cool, we have a message, we have something to say, yeah. We're way more Christian than them, but we fit in with the secular crew really good too. So right. I could it could be bad. And so I've struggled too to just stay humble with the position that I'm in.
Of course. And so much of that is just living into your call. When you're living into who you're called to be, right? As a musician, and God's given you these talents to go forward, those things fall in line, right? And that humility tends to be there.
Sometimes
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so do you want to talk a little bit about the project, what you got going on Kickstarter and all that?
Yeah. So isn't that interesting? Did you watch it? Did you see it?
Oh my God.
So that was like, I think it was like right when I sent it to Zach, like, dude, look at this. And by the time I sent it to Zach, and by the time he had replied,
right. Log in, yeah,
it just like,
yeah,
it was amazing.
Insane.
So Brad and I we've been planning this, but then even though we've been planning it, we personally launched it really fast. We only had like a week to get all the back end figured out. We knew we were working on songs, but we didn't know how excited. Once we started like talking, it was like, let's do it. And now once we had the momentum going, and all of a sudden it's like 10, 9, 8, 7, fast. And so Brad came over and we hit launch on the Kickstarter, and we were live streaming, and all of a sudden we're just watching the number go up, 31 minutes to reach our $60,000 goal. And last time we asked for 30,000, and that took about an hour. And last time I had 5 opportunities for people to go on a Jeff the Girl tour of Denver. And I offered 5, and it took 60 days before they all sold out. This time I offered 5. Those sold out the first day, offered 5 the next day, sold out the second day. I'm capped, dude. That's plenty I can't do more. But that's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. And, for anybody who has ever done a fundraiser, a Kickstarter, or anything, 99% of the population hits refresh, and maybe it goes up $1. And I can't imagine sitting in your seat watching that ticker just skyrocket like that.
I think I attribute part of that to having an amazing fan base. You said it earlier, you touched on it, which is, you didn't say this, but you were kind of alluding to the fact that 5 Iron fans are their own thing. I really believe that. I believe there's a certain type of person that doesn't quite fit in here, doesn't quite fit in there. If someone says I'm a 5 Iron fan, it's like, oh, I know something about you. Like, that's different, right? It's almost like a sorority or fraternity. I don't know.
It absolutely is, yeah.
It's hard to put your finger on exactly what that brand of person might be like, but I try not to assume, but there is a different beast with a 5 Iron fan. And so you have not only the social media presence, but you have a sense of obligation to a cause that is bigger than yourself. And so because for so many years, a lot of our tours were adjoined with a benevolence. We're raising money for Kenya. We're raising socks. We're raising blankets. We're raising food, orphanages, whatever we did. People started to incorporate this idea of, if I support 5 Iron, it makes a difference. And that's a weird branding. That's also pressure, but it also has a truth to it, which is, if I want this message to be understood and even considered by people the biggest amount of people possible, then I have to get on board and support it. And I think that's the excitement to this new album and this season that we're in. And that's what I'm excited to see. Kind of what Matt was saying is like, what's going to happen now?
Right.
Well, and that to me is like the idea of the response. I'm excited to see like how far you get. I was like, man, if I had like $9,000 to spend, I would help put you over that 200,000. Like if I had it, just like if it was just nothing to me, like I would love to do that right now, just to put you over the 200,000, just to see what would come next. And
I don't know what's going to come next. We're talking about it every day. We're like, do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? Also, a thing that I like about being in this band is there's nobody in charge. I love it and I hate it. I love it and I hate it. We've had managers before, and we actually have to fire them because we're bad at being managed. We don't let them do their job because for so long we didn't have managers. We know how to do everything. What it really is the cat wrangling, like getting someone into the conversation that can chill us out, because we have so many passions, which is a good thing. But we also have 8 different point of views. We have 8 different theological backgrounds. 2 of which aren't Christians at all. Mm-hmm. So you have all that. And then you have a lot of different political spectrum people, different all across the board. Not only that, you have people that are different culturally and some age difference. And so it's hard to all be on the same page with the same voice and the same passion. So that fact that we're together and can do that, that's also a miracle to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matt and I can speak from that for 2 people hosting a podcast, right? There are things that we want to do collectively, and there are things that we want to do separately. Mm-hmm. And then you add 6 more people to that group with the same thing. And so it's amazing. I mean, it's I've always been in awe of ska bands because, one, they're so big, right? You add a horn section and there's 3-4 more people on top of what you already have, and to come together cohesively like that is a beautiful and really fun thing.
You not only have to, the big thing in the beginning is you have to find the space in the song. So when you're thinking about a song, there's only so many areas where vocal melodies can fit, horn melodies can fit, and so in the first place you're vying for that space. Then you're vying for that message. Then you're vying for what shines in this song isn't going to shine in that song. What shines on this album might not shine on that album. Then you're vying for who does what. So one of the interesting things about 5-Iron is that everybody in the band has a job. And so that means that nobody gets paid more than anybody else, and nobody is less than anybody else. Some people write more music. Some people pack the van. Some people order the merch. Some people do all the taxes. Thank the Lord it's Dennis. I do a lot of the interviews, and I do a lot of fan relations, I guess, like, answering letters, talking to people, hanging out at the show. Does that have merit? Yeah, some people are extreme introverts. They don't want to come out of the green room. And then if everybody was like that, that's when you end up on a message board. Everyone says, face-to-face are jerks. No, they might all just be introverts. Like, we're lucky to have some extroverts, right? So anyway, it's interesting if everybody has a job to feel like you're part of the team.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Oh gosh, I was going to say, I don't know.
Well, you can edit.
We can.
We
don't normally, but we can.
That's funny. Is like we try not to. We try to make it like we're just sitting at a table, like and I think that's like you take what you all do, and you each have your parts. And the same thing like with us, like. There are things that I do that Zach doesn't, and there are things that Zach does that I don't do, and that's what I think makes for a beautiful partnership. And then you add in like to have the balance of all the people that you have, given the fact that it's a ska band, so it's not just like 3 people; it's it's a whole group of people in a cloud of dust. It's always nice to have those places and spaces to say like, hey, those guys are introverts. I'm the guy that you want to talk to. Like just just. Don't go mess with them. And sometimes that's how it is.
Space, yeah.
That's kind of how it is sometimes with Zach and I. Zach's like, yeah, don't mess with him. He's in his head.
He's kicking the pig over there.
And so just let him be. And I think that's what like beautiful about those kind of relationships is it allows space for creativity to happen in that point because where your wheelhouse is and where you're stretching yourself and where it's, it ends up being a great thing. And I think that's how, like, especially when you're working with more than one person, those collaborations become really good when you play to everybody's strengths.
Right. Our favorite things, though, we play a lot with MXPX, like I said. And after a show, you're on a high. Everybody's feeling so good. It was an awesome night. You sold tons of merch. People rocked out. And they're like, let's go on the town. We're going to go get some pizzas. We have like a whole group coming with us, like some fans, some friends, some family members, people in town that know us. Go get some beers. Not us. We like to go to the hotel room, laugh at stupid YouTube videos, maybe share a 6-pack, order some pizza, just be with each other. We like to be with each other, and it's the inside jokes start pouring out, and maybe a couple spouses come on the road, and that's fun too. But it's not about the more is more, because we already have more. Like it's actually really nice to have this many people in the band and be able to go to a restaurant and all sit in a few booths, which is us. Like it's huge. We take over the whole restaurant, right? Like a Waffle House is inundated with this many people, but there's something beautiful about saying, I really look forward to seeing you. And we fly out 1 weekend a month and put our lives on pause from a Thursday to a Sunday night. And yeah, it's hard, but it's more fun than anything. And we don't always make money, but it's like, oh, what a beautiful respite. What a beautiful way to get my energy out. And for me, it makes me a better wife because I need all that attention and all that excitement. So I'm dying during COVID. I'm dying, you guys.
Yeah. And that's such a testament to who you are as people. One that you just simply enjoy time together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because people don't always enjoy time together with the folks that they work with or create with. Maybe they fell into this situation. Maybe at one point they enjoyed time together. But for one reason or another, that those relationships get strained and time together gets strained. But for you all, especially in the last 10 years, y'all have kind of dispersed.
Right.
Doesn't seem like you're all in the Denver area anymore.
There's only 5 of us. Yeah, 5 of us in Denver.
Right. And so you're right, that respite to come back together, one, to something that is familiar, but also fresh and new each time you do it, because you have the stories that are new and the inside jokes that are old. And you just keep building on that, right?
Right. Sometimes people say something like Lubala or just some I can't even say, like, oh, how about this one? This is a good one. What if we made an album called Worthy of the Bird? Like the Dove Award. See, we have yet to do that. That's another idea. We just have all these. We used to have, like I said, we had a band house, so we lived together. So we were living in the school bus when we toured, living in the band house, starting a church called Scum of the Earth together. Reese and I were going to college together, so we would fly out on weekends to the shows to catch up with the guys. So much life together. And in our old band house, we had like a little, what do you call that? Like, not a folder, but like it's hard and you can put papers on it. I don't know, like kind of like a binder.
Oh, like a clipboard.
Clipboard, yeah. So because we had so many guests come to the band house all the time, and they could suggest the name of our next album. Anyone could write what they thought it should be, so that was interesting.
Yeah,
right.
It is. It really is. I don't know.
You thought of one?
I always have them.
I think there's something ingrained in young men that they start thinking about the names of the albums before they have a song, right? Like, oh, this is the logo. This is the band name. You don't have a song, dude.
Can you play an instrument? But gonna have a band and a band name.
Yeah.
I actually think we went like 3 weeks before, or actually we went like 6 months before we had a podcast. Like we had the name, we had we had everything. We just hadn't put it together. And then
I have a podcast too, and I had my name, but it took me forever because the back end of a podcast is a lot harder than people think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It is.
Agreed.
It is. So much of just anything we create is getting out and doing something, anything to figure out what it is we want to do. And podcasts are no different.
Right.
They're no different in that creative process.
So, I mean, we want to be respectful of your time. And we're just I think Zach's more in awe that he's getting to have this conversation.
I'm not often speechless and just
yeah.
Well, let me say something interesting. I'm also a pastor. And so a lot of people don't know that, but I'm preaching Sunday. This will be the first time since COVID, when we started living in the house, kind of self-quarantining, all this, that I will be giving a sermon. It will be in the front of an apartment complex wearing masks, and it's part of an outreach to a particular large apartment complex. And this will be new for me. So I'm just putting it out there. I would appreciate prayers. not a lot of people show up, but it also is new for me. I'm not nervous, but I'm wondering, do I wear my mask? Do I take it off? There's also an elderly population that like to hug. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. It's hard to say no. It's hard to have boundaries. This is all new for me. We've been giving tons of coats and blankets and food and dry goods to the people that live in these apartments. There's about 300 people that live there. So we've been, making sure people have what they need. But this is the first time I will be spiritually giving them what they need. And it's new. It's new. And so I don't know, have you guys been back in the pulpit since all of this?
Here in Cheyenne, so I made the move from Montana to Cheyenne in the end of June, which moving mid-pandemic's fun. We've been outside. Our church space has a beautiful lawn. And so we've been outside, which en masse doing the social distancing thing, but we've been able to avoid the inside stuff, right. And having to sanitize and do all of that work.
That's
and
good.
How many people do you let in, and all of those things. And so it's different, but there's something freeing about being able to do worship outside in the neighborhood and in the elements.
Right.
And that's where we've been. So I'm in like one of the top 4 states with COVID. So like I'm in a bad state. Like we shouldn't be doing anything. I'm in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And so we're like the only church in town that is not offering in-person worship.
Yeah, but that's probably a good choice right now.
Oh yeah. The medical people are like definitely excited or okay with like their,
yeah, that's good.
So I haven't preached physically to my congregation in almost 28 weeks.
Wow.
We've done events like we call them come and receive communion. Right. We actually had, so Sunday we had a come and receive communion and a baby shower. So we had the family with the baby shower and they could do their communion and baby shower or however they did it.
Right.
And so that's been, it's been interesting. Especially like, I was joking with Zach when all this started that the podcast definitely prepared me for doing these things without an audience, right? Because that's been rough,
right?
And but it's also allowed, like Zach said, it's allowed some room for some creativity I wouldn't have gotten to do elsewise. And I think of what I did for Holy Week for Good Friday service, and I had like 15 different voices came and preached about the last moments of Jesus's life, and it was just powerful. And so being able to do some things I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise has been really fun. But that's still, cool. I mean, I look forward to the day when we can meet, but I also know that like my top priority is making sure that nobody gets sick under my watch. And I've got to do all that we can.
Yeah.
And just wish we were in a space that we could do that. But I live in a state that's not happening.
Right. There was the opportunity I had to do one sermon where same thing, kind of pre-recorded. But then one church that I was at was a Zoom call, and it was about 50 people. And it was fascinating because their missionaries from Turkey were able to sit in. People that have extreme disabilities that normally don't get to go to church anyway were in. People were in different people's backyards coming. And then I kept messing up because I'm supposed to like kind of look, when you're doing Zoom, there's a place where you're supposed to look so you don't get like, I don't know, it looks like you're looking in someone's eyes. But I couldn't do that. So I'm like, people were interacting and it was like Muppets, because there's so many people interacting. And I went back and watched it and I'm like, my eyes are all over the place. But it was cool because they had a half an hour of fellowship before and a half an hour after. And I've gone to that church and I've preached there a lot. And normally we don't mix a lot. You have the people that are getting coffee, the people are saying hi to their friends, and then the people just come late and sit. So this, you could see everyone's face. You could see a little bit of their home, which is a little invasive, but kind of cool. And then people would, we had the worship leader, and his whole job was kind of to, how are you? How are you? What are you up to? He knew everybody, so he could kind of facilitate more fellowship than I usually see. And so they said, we're excited when we can get back together because we feel like this is going to grow our community.
That's exactly how I feel. Like, and like some of the opportunities that we've been able to provide, and the connections we've been able to make, I think that's going to only strengthen us in the long term. Right. And some of it's just, it really is just managing. I mean, that's really where we're at. And so holding our breath and making sure, like, I have to admit, like, our little care team that we have has done amazing work at checking in on people who can't connect in, because that's like my big concern is those people who can't afford to connect in for whatever reason. But they've been amazing. Like, I'm definitely, I think this has strengthened our church in a lot of ways.
Very cool.
It's just been amazing. It's been a fun time to do church. I mean, in honesty, and like things like this, like being able to, like, this is our fourth year. Yeah, fourth year. We've pretty much recorded every week
of the Bearded podcast.
Yeah,
Bearded Theologians.
Yeah, and so like, and kind of like you all with the band, like we've been to places we never thought we would have been at it. And we just kind of take it in stride, and we have fun while we're doing it, and making sure that we're trying to do all the good that we can, all the places we can. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and that's, like you say, it's Matt and I started out to create space for people to wonder and find their place, and it set us up for a time such as this with COVID and digital ministries and having to do whatever we're doing in church differently, because we have to. We needed to before, we have to now. But it has opened up, families that live across the country or world from each other can go to church together now. Cool. And that line of territory or whatever that kept us from actually connecting with either people or greater expanses of people is gone now. Church and ministry aren't going to be the same. I think they're going to look a lot like this, and a lot like what you're doing, of being out in front of people wherever you can be, because there's space, and there's necessity, and there's hope in that. And I think that's something important for us not to forget if the pandemic ever ends, right? Right.
Well, I'm excited for this new album because in some ways it's a distraction, and I think that it's a good distraction. I needed it. Personally, I really needed this joy to come back. I needed this energy, even just recording, playing my instrument on new songs, just using new muscles. And I'm super stoked, and I'm grateful to have been part of your podcast. Again, if you ever want me to come back on, we can do more theology. I probably know a lot less than you think. But it's fun. It's fun to talk theology too. So I'm kind of asking, can I come back sometime?
Yes.
And can we get deep into theology? Because
100%.
I find that those conversations are really fun.
100%. You have an open invitation to come back anytime.
And then we'll have more to talk about when the new album's out. More about the songs, the theology of the songs.
Yeah.
And so
sure.
We'll have a link to the Kickstarter there in the podcast for people to connect into. And we thank you for your time, and this is just been a great experience. And like I'm kind of like Zach, like this is awesome. Like this is definitely in the top 10 of our podcast of interviews that we've had.
100%.
Very cool.
It combines some of our passions, and just have to be honest, like it's. When I said, "Hey Zach, see if we can make this work," I say that a lot to him, and we get shot down way more than we get accepted. And so when we get accepted, we were like, "This is amazing."
Yeah, it's fun, super fun.
We thank you for your time, and the album, and all that information will be listed in this. And so, so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out,
guys. I want you to subscribe and like this video, and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.